A well-constructed varying zigzag pattern kept the guilty hidden. We ask that, as you view this section, ask yourself which of these signs you personally thought convinced you was the correct one. This discussion of signs is presented by the forensics economists of Hawks Cafe as a theory to explain the causal events leading up to the attack on September 11, 2001.
Good evening, this is Frank Knight. May I introduce our co-editors for this edition of the Longines Colorscope, Edward P. Morgan and Winston Burdett, both of the CBS television news staff. Our distinguished guest for this evening is the Honorable Prescott Bush, United States Senator from Connecticut.
Senator Bush, just the other night, a Republican colleague of yours in the House of Representatives, Congressman Hugh Scott of Philadelphia, sitting in the same seat that you're occupying now on the Chronoscope, had some rather rough things to say about what he called the extreme right wing of the Republican Party. He said, in effect, that this wing was hobbling the Eisenhower administration's program and regime, and that it should stop it. What is your comment on that, sir?
Well, I noticed that Mr. Scott made remarks to that effect. My feeling was that they were a little severe and not entirely justified. I think that so often...
9/11 occurred coincidentally, exactly 11 years to the day from the September 11, 1990 speech by President George Herbert Walker Bush describing a coming New World Order.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
In which an elite international banking organization will utilize America's preeminent military power to spread Western values to create a supranational order and governance of all nations by a new United Nations. This was in fact one of the later signs. But it led to this manifesto in 1997 as a sign of things on the horizon, the Project for a New American Century, endorsed by the brother of the next president and his future vice president, along with the future Secretary of State and future head of the World Bank. This sign was a reaction to Clinton military policies that essentially gave away the farm to China, at a time when China was, and still is, arming themselves to the teeth with advanced Russian military weaponry, and was described as incoherent by the neocons. But it can be shown to be anything but. Another sign of coming problems is this one, showing the erosion of the Palestinian state by Israel between 1946 and 2000, fomenting Islamic agitation that grew over time as American strategic funding grew the land holdings and state of Israel. This was one of the early signs. Another sign is the beginning of the CIDA, that later becomes the OIF, in direct partnership with China and French-speaking Canada, and partners with Arab states in a philosophical partnership of socialism, feeding the growing Arab hatred of the West as its underpinning. This sign was very clearly supported by the Clinton administration to produce vast amounts of secret cash laundered through international banking entities from the international opium and heroin trade in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the Balkans, to increase an already in-place distribution system to finance CIA and ISI operations out of congressional oversight, which moved drugs through these Arab states and the Balkan states, while taking the focus off of Chinese heroin, moving into Mexico and into Arkansas, and up the NAFTA highway into Canada. But then Iraq gave a northern province natural gas drilling contract to Russia instead of Halliburton, and was about to change from dollars to euros in its oil sale. He was also gaming the Oil for Food program in partnership with French banking and Maurice Strong as the UN go-between. Saddam had loyalty only to those that fed him, and the United States had abandoned him after creating the first Gulf War.